Councilman Dulin.
Thank you, Pro Tem and Council. Hey, we've had an extended break from work, and in the past, the past 3 weeks, there's been a lot of communication and talk about the Occupy Charlotte folks across the street at the old City Hall. I'd like to, this board tweaks things all the time, whether it's sidewalks or trees or bike lanes or bridges or whatever it might be that we need to tweak. And it was amazing to me that there was not an ordinance on the City of Charlotte's books for all these hundreds of years that protected city-owned land. And I would stand in front of a freight train to protect the First Amendment rights for citizens of the United States and for folks, United States Constitution rights to protest. But I also need to stand in front and stand out loud and raise my hand up and say I'd like to protect the City of Charlotte and the City of Charlotte's property. So I think we need to look at this. There's no ordinance now, so there's nothing to look at. But I think I'd like to make a motion to send to Public Safety Committee that we study what other towns are doing. We study what options we have to protect, and we can assist the protesters if we want to. But I think they need to go home at dark. But that'll come out in the committee. I'd like to send to the Community Safety Committee and ask them to look at a possible ordinance tweak or a possible new ordinance to protect city-owned land. Now, what has bothered me about that, about not having an ordinance, is that as it is now, people can go to a city-owned piece of property and live there for infinity, forever. There's nothing that says that they can live there for infinity. And so that's something that got past us for 150 years, 200 years, and we need to look at it and work on it. That'd be good work by this council. I'd like to move that on. And by the way, I mean, I don't think we can get it done by the 28th, but if we could get something back to us by the 28th and let this council vote on it and take care of the business that is in front of this council, I'd like that.
Councilman Peacock. Thank you, Councilman Dulin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to be a little bit more specific than Councilman Dulin, although I'm just echoing the sentiments that he said here. I'd just like to make a motion to place an item on our 11/28 agenda, which would be as follows: to discuss the existing ordinances that we have in place for those. Right now, currently, for anybody that is going to trespass or occupy any type of property in the City of Charlotte, this would include people that are homeless in the City of Charlotte. How does our police address that? Secondly, address the proposed draft ordinances that were shared with us several weeks ago by Manager Walton. And I'd like to specifically address demonstrations and protests within the confines of public city spaces. So I'd like to put that on the agenda for our council to discuss on the 28th. And from there, Mr. Dulin, I think that at that point we could determine whether or not we'd want to refer it to committee for further discussion. But my dialogue with Deputy City Manager Hagerman, Police Chief Monroe, suggests that we can have this open discussion. I think it should be an open discussion with us in front of the public eye, not in a committee meeting, even though that is open. But it's an important subject. It's one that this city needs to address, and I think especially this council needs to address. So that's my motion.
Does that need a second, Mr. Peacock?
I would appreciate a second, Mr. Dulin. So this would be a motion to put the subject of reviewing the ordinances on the 11/28 agenda.
All right, there's been a motion made and properly second. I have Councilman Barnes, Councilman Howard, and Councilwoman Carter. Councilman Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I am not going to support either motion because there's a bit of history here that's important for us to keep in mind, and that is that after Charlotte was awarded the DNC, our staff began to assess and evaluate our ordinances, and they've been working on the ordinances all year long, And I think if we give them an appropriate amount of time, and I believe the manager can speak to this as well, give them an appropriate amount of time, they will actually come to us with recommendations consistent with the concerns that some of us have. The fact of the matter is that what we have looked at from an ordinance perspective has had nothing to do with Occupy Charlotte, because it started at the beginning of the year after the DNC was awarded. And it would be important to me to make sure that we are not abridging people's constitutional rights. I think that's first and foremost. I believe, and I've mentioned this to the manager in the past, that there's a certain value that occupying public space has, and we should account for that in some form or fashion. But I am not comfortable asking that this matter be put on the November 28th agenda, because, as I said, I believe there's a set of ordinances that the manager will be bringing forth to us for consideration, and I'll let him speak to the timing of that if he's prepared to. But for us to assume that we are ready to address something like this in 2 weeks, or to have them address it with us, I think is too presumptuous. The fact of the matter is that there are a number of spokes in this wheel, and we need to have all of those spokes brought to us at one time, not one spoke in the 28th, two during the next business meeting. So, Mr. Manager, would you be willing to speak to your ability to bring to us a set of solutions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I didn't want to jump in with Councilmember Dulin and Peacock and re-steer where council might want to go. So I appreciate the entree, Mr. Barnes. We did begin work last spring on a set of ordinances that we knew that we would need to deal with, and they generally fall under the umbrella of free speech and freedom of assembly and those sort of things that we don't have currently. I think the things in the books that we are going to need by next September. And so we have been progressing, and no camping was one of those, or is one of those. And so we have been looking at those as a package that we had planned to start briefing you on in January and bring them to you as a package. And so that's our plan, to come forward with them as a group. We can, I don't think we would be ready to bring them as a group to you sooner. We could bring no camping to you as a standalone per Mr. Dulin and Peacock's conversations, if that's what you prefer. And I think that our recommendation to you is to leave them together and bring them in January. And so without direction to do differently, that's what our plan is to do. Okay. All right. Councilman Howard.
I agree with Councilman Barnes, and I was going to ask for the same update, Kurt. Thank you for that. I can understand some of the reasoning behind wanting to deal with this issue now, but I like to commend our staff and our law enforcement officers for doing a great job already. I mean, this in other cities, this has gotten out of hand and been a black eye for a lot of different places, and our staff's done a great job so far of handling this. And I think that's because they're making sure that they're enforcing all the laws and all the rules, and I fully expect that we should keep doing that. But I don't want to rush to try to solve this one problem. It's not just one problem. Deal with this one issue, and not deal with the bigger scope of what we're trying to get done. So I'm agreeing with the manager that we should put this off and we should wait. We shouldn't rush on this one. We should take our time and do this right. And if for some reason the ordinance and rules are not enforced, the management will deal with that. So I want to stick with what the manager is asking for tonight.
Thank you, Councilman Howard. Councilwoman Carter, please.
Thank you. We do have a process for items such as this. It's an orderly one. We present a proposal. There's public hearing. From the public hearing, we debate it at the dais. It is sent to committee to be studied. The committee debates, deliberates, advises us, and we can either adopt at that point, or we can send it back to committee for further consideration. It's a very orderly procedure, and I think that's what needs to be involved here. And hearing it's an umbrella looking at particularly protecting the rights of our citizens, and that's all of our citizens. It's not just the ones who live here. That's, to me, the key. I have been to the site 3 times. I have talked with people there. I've interacted. There's respect for ordinances. I've talked with the police who are there with these individuals. There's mutual respect and mutual tolerance. And I think that's what Charlotte is known for, and that's what I want to be perceived as well as to be actually. If we stampede through something, I don't think that respect is hallmarked, as we usually do. So I would recommend to letting the new council debate this, look at it, consider it in the light of their wisdom, and then move on the issue.
Thank you, Councilwoman Carter. Councilman Peacock.
Andrew Walton, why wait until January? We know that the one most contentious issue addresses the word camping, and that's in the draft ordinance that's been